Good evening. Tonight we're overjoyed to hold our first community talk event for Fort Lee Public Schools. Educating children successfully requires partnership, not just between schools and parents, but with the community. So we're excited to extend this invitation, not just to parents, but to all Fort Lee community members to talk about a very important topic that's facing our society today, and that's digital overload. In partnership with GOMO Services, the Fort Lee School District welcomes Fabiola Paul, who will present about how to manage and cope with stress and anxiety as a result of digital overload. Fabiola is the founder and CEP of Enlightening Counseling and Educational Services, LLC, which specializes in providing mental health counseling to women and teenage girls. Fabiola is a licensed clinical social worker, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing trained, and a certified clinical trauma professional. She received her master's degree in social work from Rutgers University. She is also a speaker, author, and empowerment coach who has been in the social services field for 10 years. She has worked with children, adolescents, and adults impacted by abuse and neglect and those experiencing emotional behavioral challenges in the United States and internationally. And so, as the Assistant Superintendent of Schools, I would love to invite Fabiola Paul to begin her presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction. I am overjoyed and excited as well to present to you on a very important topic. And before we get right into it, I want to make sure that we're all centered, coming from work, it's been a long day. Let's just take a deep breath. In and out, in through the nose, exhale, through the mouth, and just make sure that we're centered. Feeling good? We can continue. All right, so connection question. If you were able to jump on a plane right now, where would you go? Any takers? Aruba. Okay, Aruba, nice. Anyone else?
Croatia.
Oh, Croatia, interesting. New Zealand, Thailand. Oh, I love these answers. I'm actually going to be jumping on a plane less than 12 hours, and I'm going to Jamaica. So I'm very excited for that. All right, so today we're really going to be addressing the impact of digital overload, stress, burnout, and understanding what we can do to provide relief, specifically a wellness plan with realistic strategies that you can start today. So that's exciting. All right. So norms, we want to understand that this is a safe space. We're going to be sharing, we're going to be listening to others, and we're going to be empathetic and respectful listeners. And being able to, especially when we talk about barriers to stress and experiences of stress, we really want to make sure that we are respectful and listening to other people's experiences. And feel free to share. So the question today that we'll be answering, essential question. Are you experiencing digital overload? Recognizing the signs of burnout, recognizing when to reach out for help, and being able to connect with the resources that you need, and implementing the tools that we'll be creating today. And so that's the big fun activity that we'll be doing. So you'll leave with something. You guys had your handouts, so keep that handy. We're going to be referring to it throughout today's presentation. So, digital overload, what is it and how do you know that you are experiencing it? Well, it's really an overwhelming feeling that comes from intense connection, always having access 24 hours a day, and not being able to have a break, not being able to have a control over your environment. And that causes increased stress, that also causes burnout and lack of productivity, and that's why it's important to talk about. And the main thing to keep in mind is that your decision-making process and your decision-making ability decreases as your level of overload increases. So again, big deal. So when you think about digital overload, how do you know if it's happening to you? What are the signs and what are the symptoms? Some of the signs are being restless, easily agitated. So you come into the morning, staff greets you, and you're just not even there. You're not paying attention. You're aggravated. You're multitasking, but not getting a lot of work done. So you find yourself being constantly overwhelmed and behind on work, but nothing is getting done. You realize also that you reach for your devices constantly. So there's that urge to just check in, to tap in, to touch your phone, even if it's mindless scrolling. And you do it without even thinking. When you realize that, wow, I've touched my phone within the span of 5 minutes, I've already touched my phone 10 times. That's a sign. It's like, what is the need to be connected and where does that come from? And also, is it providing me relief or is it providing me that sense of FOMO, missing out, fear of missing out? So I want to have a little experiment. I need a brave volunteer, and we're going to test out a theory of digital overload that I have. So, okay, come on up. Thank you for volunteering. Are you willing for at least 30 minutes to put your phone into this blue basket?
Yes.
All right. So we're gonna test out my theory, and it's not going anywhere, it's going to be right here. So you can sit down, and I'll come back, I'll circle back to you. Okay, thank you for volunteering. So just notice how you're feeling, notice what's happening, and then I'm going to circle back. So what are some of the impacts of digital overload? Burnout, job burnout, it increases an already tenuous feeling of job burnout. So job burnout is an occupational hazard, specifically with various types of role, especially if you're in the education sector. You are very susceptible to job burnout because of the demands placed on you and the responsibilities that you have dealing with the children's future. So that's very heavy. But it occurs when you no longer get that sense of satisfaction. You're overwhelmed, you're burdened, you feel that you're not as productive, or you feel the sense of restlessness. And that is because of your feeling of unbalance. Your feeling of not being able to have that control in your life. So really when you sense job burnout, it's a signal to your body, and oftentimes it mimics a lot of other mental health disorders, which is an interesting phenomenon that I've been noticing in many, many of my clients. So what are some of these phenomena? Well, before we jump to that, let's look at the warning signs. So you have an increased critical outlook at work. So every day is a bad day, or every day is a Monday. Have little to no motivation of doing work. You have difficulty concentrating. And as you can see, some of these warning signs mimic digital overload. So they're very, very, very connected. And poor sleep habits, again, major implications of being able to have that productivity and being able to have that level of enjoyment that is no longer there. So these are some of the burnouts. Especially with the last few years that we've had, I've noticed, a lot across different sectors, the big uptick in burnout. All right, stress, the three-pronged, impact of digital overload, stress. So there's 3 specific types of stress. The first one is the acute stress. These are the daily stressors. Responsibility, board meeting, classroom meeting, budget meeting, things that are overwhelming, but they are part of your daily responsibilities. Then, these are the episodic acute stress. So these are the things that on top of your responsibilities, you pick up a class, or you pick up coverage, or you pick up an extra responsibility, maybe a family responsibility, or work responsibility. You choose to maybe coach your kid's soccer team or something like that, that is specific and time framed. So once that episode is done, you go back to your baseline of function. So the third level of stress, now this is the one that comes with health implications, which is chronic stress. The reason why is because it is not only acute, not only episodic, but it is long term and sometimes inescapable. For example, if you're dealing with a medical challenge, a medical diagnosis, if you're experiencing poverty or in an abusive relationship, oftentimes these trigger the stress hormones and these trigger your stress responses, but oftentimes there's nothing or there's limited resources to reduce those interactions or reactions to the stress. So this is where most of the resources or most of the trainings or most of the um, uh, outsourcing goes to, is to deal with chronic stress. And this is where we see the most impact of digital overload. Is if you're already dealing with chronic stress, and on top of that, you are experiencing digital overload, it becomes unbearable. So today we're going to, not to bum you out after I've given you all of the information, we are going to actually do a strategic action plan. So this is why I'm really excited that there is light at the end of the tunnel. Does all of this make sense? Yes? All right. Cool. At any point in time, if you have questions, just raise your hands, call out, and we'll just answer. So this is a dialogue, so I'm not just going to be talking at you guys. So let's talk about the impact of stress on our body. So raise your hand if you experience headaches, stomach aches, any lack of sleep, fatigue. Yes, all right. All right, so these are implications of the reaction to stress on your body. For me, I get headaches. So the minute my neck starts to get a little tight, I start to wonder, okay, what am I overwhelmed about? Is something going on? Did I not check in with myself? Because if I get a migraine, I'm out for 2 days. That's standard. So definitely. Now, your mood. Raise your hand if anyone gets moody, irritated, easily frustrated, easily angered, or feeling overwhelmed. Yes, yes, exactly. Stress has serious implications and reactions to your mood. And this is oftentimes where people notice, and people are saying, hey, what's wrong? Did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed? You notice those comments coming in more frequently. And that is like a sign to check in with yourself, say, hey, what is wrong? What is going on with me? And now for behavior. Anybody notice that you've been eating more, snacking, grazing? There's a drawer full of snacks on your desk, or in the car. Okay, yeah. You notice that you are, having more alcohol, or so that one beer or one cup of wine turns into 6 or 7. Also, you're not really wanting to go with friends. You're saying, hey, I'll skip that outing. I'll see you next time, or I'll just text you or give you a call later instead of going out and enjoying the company of others. When you start noticing, like, hey, I've been doing and experiencing a lot of these things, even though you may be functioning at a reasonable level, your body's telling you, hey, there's something wrong, I'm stressed out. Oftentimes, our bodies are our first warning signs that something is wrong, and then we catch up later. Right? Does this make sense? Awesome. So let's watch a little video just highlighting the serious implications of digital overload.
It's called information overload, a theory that has recently been developed to address the intake of too much data due to the widespread use of digital devices, massive amounts of new information, and the ability to transmit this information so quickly. What's truly fascinating is that Americans spend half of their year consuming information. That's 182 and a half days of straight data consummation. If I break it down, the average person consumes information for 12 hours a day. taking in 100,000 words a day, which is 201 letter-sized pages of text, single-spaced. The scariest part is that when only read, we remember 10% of this information. The stats on the internet seem decent, with the average person spending 32 hours online a month. During the same time, 30 billion new pieces of content are published on Facebook. That's 3 with 10 zeros. In terms of emails, the average professional receives at least 100 emails a day. No wonder why Yahoo's survey found that 1/3 of people would rather clean their toilets than sort through their inboxes. What's more interesting is that the average professional checks their inboxes 30 to 40 times an hour. The 21st century is clearly redefining multitasking. In a college lecture, students open twice as many distracted windows on their laptops as productive windows. For every 100 productive windows, students also opened 27 email windows, 33 surfing and entertainment windows, 43 instant messaging windows, 87 operation system windows, and 19 miscellaneous windows. The question is, does multitasking work? Research states that 1 in every 40 people are able to multitask without performing work at a task, which means a mere 2.5% of people are what they coined supertaskers. So what does this mean for the rest of us? Our brain can process 100 trillion instructions per second, while our working memory can hold between 3 to 4 tasks at a time. Multitasking has been a large contributor to information overload, which in turn has been a large contributor to our country's deficit. It's estimated to have cost the U.S. economy $900 billion annually since 2008. $900 billion a year. I could go to space with Virgin Galactic 4,500,000 times with that money. So what does this all mean? Well, for starters, it means we've become digital junkies. But the real question is, how do we fix this? We need to learn how to limit ourselves. We need to turn off our cell phones, our laptops, our iPads, even if it's just for an hour. We need to read books. We need to embrace the time it takes to complete a singular task. We need to go outside and enjoy nature. Essentially, I think we need to unplug.
Thoughts? How did you think of the video? I think they did a really great job conveying the seriousness of the topic of digital overload and how it can impact us in an emotional, behavioral, and physical way. Yeah? All right. So let's check back in. How are you feeling?
Good.
Good. Since not touching your phone, notice any other symptoms of desire, need, urge?
None.
Awesome. Okay. This is great. So for participating, we have a little prize for you. This is amazing. Usually, some people get jittery, so. Some people get jittery, so congratulations. You can retrieve your phone. Congratulations. Thank you for participating in this experiment. So usually people get jittery and they have a sense they have an emptiness, because oftentimes our phone is like a third, our second hand, or third. All right. So let's talk about wellness and equity. What is it? What do they have to do together? Well, really being able to understand, okay, what are my needs and what are the resources that I have, and how can I use those resources not only to better my sense of well-being, but impact others. So thinking about these four main points. Wellness and equity is very personal. It's empathetic and respectful. It's intentional and it's transformative. being able to understand, hey, my wellness journey looks different. The barriers and that I have to address to achieve the sense of well-being, I may be starting from a different point. And using the role of influence and our roles and responsibilities to address those needs. For example, this event, people coming together and noticing, hey, there's a need in the community, and also it would benefit me in the school. What are some ways that we can address this need where we all benefit and we all have access to a transformative information? This is an example of understanding wellness and equity. Does that make sense? So, the wellness wheel. So, we talked about wellness a lot, and oftentimes when you think of wellness or self-care, you'll think about bubble baths and chocolate. Listen, I have nothing against those things. I absolutely enjoy a good chocolate bar, but it is so much deeper and richer than that. The wellness wheel composes of 8 dimensions of life. When all of these dimensions work well together, you achieve a sense of well-being. And that is what it means to be well. So the first component is intellectual wellness. Being able to enjoy learning new things and reading books or taking classes. Emotional wellness. Oftentimes we understand this as understanding how our feelings impact our life, either by going to therapy or journaling. Occupational wellness. So this is the part where that impacts burnout. Understanding what is it that I want to do with my talents? What is it that I want to do with my abilities? And where and professionally. There's also environmental wellness. Now this not only has to do with the environment at large, but also our space, our home. How do we want to build a safe space at home or in the classroom? How does that look like? There's also financial wellness, a big deal, making sure that we're not stressed because we don't make a living wage, or being able to make ends meet. Figuring out what are the ways that I can use what I have to make sure that I am safe and stable. Spiritual wellness, just your connection to a higher power or whatever you identify with, being able to connect with something that is greater than yourself. Physical wellness. Oftentimes people think of this as losing weight or going to the gym, but it's also as simple as going to the doctors, getting your yearly checkup, drinking water, going to sleep on time, so things like that. And social wellness, very important. Being able to connect with people, either virtually or in person. So when we talk about wellness, let's circle back to digital overload and talk about 10 ways that we can really address this. And as you can see, those different dimensions of wellness will be included and embedded in those tips. So the first tip is to create a tech-free zone or time during the day. I often recommend the first 10 minutes of the day to wake up and create your routine, not being plugged in. So not listening to the news, not checking your emails, only using your phone to turn off your alarm, and then getting ready for at least 10 minutes, and then taking that time back. Take frequent breaks. So let's say if you need to use your phone or need to be connected or accessible, take some breaks. So say, okay, during my lunch hour, I'm not going to be connected or accessible. I am going to maybe watch a movie or listen to music, and using that time. The number 3 is the big one. Limit multitasking. Now notice this says limit and not stop, because that is something that is truly difficult to do. But if you have, I'm guilty of having 10 tabs up, maybe the next time around you notice that, and maybe only have 5 or 4. So taking some efforts to limit doing a few tasks at a time. Number 4, engage in mindfulness and different activities. We are actually going to be having an opportunity to engage in mindfulness as well, so I'm really excited for you guys. It'll be a really sensory activity. And then implement a bedtime or morning routine. And this is really important for sleep hygiene. So let's say if you are having trouble sleeping, notice changing a few things right before bed. The main is not using your phone to scroll, especially 30 minutes before bed. And sometimes people say, well, my phone helped me fall asleep. It's the blue light. It's a reactive experience where you think you're getting drowsier, but it's really the light from the phone that is, interrupting your natural chemical rhythm for circadian rhythm for sleep. Also, fuel your body. Make sure you're eating. Okay, being able to move your body and eat, drink water, and then engage all parts of your mind. When you're using your mind, you're more focused and more mindful. Some of these you can, tag team and do together. Number 8, encourage safe socialization. For example, maybe have a Zoom meeting or a Zoom night or something to connect socially online, or being able to have like a game night but having it online. But maybe once a month. So really limit those times and create those safe environments in a very controlled way. And set some boundaries when you're at home. Something that we do is having our phones in one place. So like this blue basket is from my house, and that's where we put the phones in. So being able to have that time at least as soon as we get home, put it somewhere, and then we can always go back for it when we need it during the night. And number 10, seek help from a mental health professional if you're noticing that I'm actually experiencing some chronic stress, some burnout, and I'm seeing that I'm not able to bounce back. That is a sign for yourself that it's okay to seek help. Any of these 10 ways jump out at you? Anything that you're interested to try or curious about?
Reducing multitasking.
Good one, good one.
Setting boundaries is important. A lot of times, when that work leads to downtime, loss of iPad, unblur those lines.
Yes, that's excellent, excellent point.
I have a question.
Yes.
How do you define the difference between news or digital overload?
Mm-hmm.
Watching content, so a movie versus scrolling?
Yes, great question. So usually there's a purpose. So when you're watching a movie, there's entertainment value. You're doing something that's intentional. So unless it's background, usually you turn on the movie for background. Then it could bleed into digital overload because you're having that constant noise or sound or need to have an interaction, like a false interaction. So if you're watching a movie, or even if you're binge watching, so that can be a lot, but it's a purpose. There's a reason behind it. With digital overload, there is oftentimes it's not intentional. So you're scrolling. Let's say you scroll on Facebook, you're looking through a feed, and you wake up and you look around and say, "Wow, I've been scrolling for an hour. Where did the time go? I only meant to look for, I just meant to look for somebody's birthday." Or, for example, having access to news, to media outlets, to Facebook or any of the social media platforms. I think it's the access. Saying how much access am I giving away and how much access am I tapping into? And if you find yourself not having a purpose or intention with that access, then it bleeds into digital overload. See? Great question. Great question. Right. So now for the fun parts. Okay. So we are going to be starting our wellness planning. So we're going to be using the 3 P's of wellness. Okay. So you have your handouts with you, and this is where you'll be writing in your plan. So what am I going to try? What am I going to maybe experiment with? So I don't like to call it homework. I like to call them life challenges, right? Because this is a part of life. So the first P is prioritize, or plan. prioritize, problem solve, and plan. So the prioritize is to choose an area of wellness. So in your wheel, you'll figure out, what part of wellness do I want to tap into? What part am I noticing that that's interrupting my life? Then you problem solve. It's a lot easier to be able to address barriers if you know what they are and if you plan for them. And you're less resistant to trying new things when you already have a backup plan. So we really want to talk about the problems. The last one is plan. We're going to be using the SMARTER acronym to actually create your action statement. So you'll have that as well. So let me give you an example. So this is is everyone familiar with the SMARTER acronym? So really being, creating something that is very specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, very key, time-based, and the ER is in addition to evaluate and review. So when you think about what does my action statement entail, it composes of those characteristics. Here's an example. Prioritize. Let's say we choose an area of wellness. For example, we choose physical wellness. And we always want to know, well, why am I doing this? Why did I choose that? So the example says, because I have gained weight and I'm unhappy about it and worried about my health. Problem, figuring out what the problem is solving. Well, what might get in the way? What are some of the barriers? Excuses, lack of motivation, energy, lack of support, resources. What are some negative tendencies? It's really important to know yourself and thinking about what might internally get in the way. Example, giving into my excuses. And what are some supports that I may need? Accountability partner, seeing a nutritionist or another professional. And then plan. So it's for me, when you have a why, when you have the emotional attachment when you're planning, it's a lot stronger than just putting something down, coming up with it, and trying, because you have that why attached. So here's the why. Feeling empowered and motivated. So this is the action step. So what you will actually be doing is, I will lose 5 pounds in 30 days. I will achieve this by exercising 4 times a week, drinking water daily, and not eating past 10. So in this example, it's realistic, it's time-based, it's very specific, and you have time to evaluate and review. Do I want to do this again? Did I achieve my goal? What got in the way? So you have in your packet space to actually write down in each of these categories what you would like to do. So at the end of it all, you can either, this will be blank for you guys, you can have at least one statement, but you can have space for 2. And here's other examples. So let's say you choose occupational wellness. So I want a new career that offers more work-life balance. I will apply to 5 jobs a week on Indeed for 2 weeks. It's very specific, time sensitive. You're able to review and evaluate how you do, what are the things that are missing. And let's say if you chose emotional wellness. I want to feel less anxious and enjoy more time with family and friends. So I'll use Psychology Today to contact at least 3 therapists during the week for a consultation. I will also practice 1 coping skill a week. So these are examples that show how you would use the SMARTER acronym to create your goals. So you guys will have a few minutes to create your action statement now. So don't skip over the wellness piece. Take some time to problem solve, to prioritize, and plan. And then the last page is a space where you get to write your own personal action statement. So you guys can do that now. tell sometimes it's nice to have it on your phone with the notes part. And oftentimes, I tell people to write it on the sticky notes. If you can put it in the glove compartment, and just have places where you're constantly reminded. So sometimes it's my screensaver. Oftentimes, if I want to change the pace, I put it as a screensaver. anyone like to share? You don't have to, but if you'd like to share your statement or even be about the experience, was this a simple process to go through now that you had the steps of a pathway to create a statement? Yeah. Yeah.
I have a specific questions to answer.
Mhm. Yeah.
Differentiates the different areas where most people are actually categorizing it probably on two or three areas.
Mhm.
But it was nice to see like spiritual and social, etc.
I think oftentimes I forget what is stressing me out. I know I'm stressed.
Mhm.
I know that there's things going on. I know why I feel burnt out or stressed or anxious or fatigued. But the questions really help me guide and pinpoint exactly what it is, like, or time management or maybe tunnel vision with work. So the questions really help.
Awesome. Great, great. Yes, and I think being able to work on one area, that's key. Working on one area of wellness at a time. Because then once you experience success, when you break it down, you're able to say, okay, I can do it in this area, let's try another area. And the more areas you address, again, it's when all eight dimensions are working together, you experience well-being. Did you want to share? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pull you out. If
No,
you did it.
it's
Okay.
so for my statement, I wrote about physical wellness, and I said I want to wake up and feel refreshed instead of feeling groggy or flooded. So I was gonna say, try and get 8 hours of sleep every day, of course, but maybe limit my phone to an hour before, like before bed, cut off my phone for an hour at least, and then try and go to sleep for the night.
That's excellent. Awesome. I love that. So I hope, hopefully this activity can also be used not only for yourself, you can use it for the classroom setting, family style, and even do it in a group, being able to achieve a group goal. So this is why I love using the SMARTER acronym and having a specific breakdown with the 3 Ps. Excellent, guys. Thank you for doing that. Hopefully, as you are implementing these, you'll have a positive success. Right. So, we'll go back to that. So, some ideas that we can um, implement. So, let's say if you were thinking about, well, what can I do physically? Or what can I do when I'm, in a specific place? Talking to a friend, sitting outside, or even opening your window, if you have an office, practicing breathing exercises. So as you can see, these self-care ideas are very simple, but they're also strategic. And so self-care can be simple. It doesn't have to be expensive or costly. One of my favorite sensory self-care resources is to create a sensing coping box. I use this a lot with my teen and child clients, and I brought one today. This is my coping box, and the reason why this works is you engage all of your senses to self-regulate and self-soothe. I have mine in a box, but you can also have it in a gallon-sized plastic bag. You can keep it in your car, you can keep it in the classroom, or in your desk. And each item of the box is meant to create a sense of relaxation. Helps you to regulate your nervous system and be very mindful. So let's start with touch. Anything that you can use to have a sense of calm or a sense of pressure. Some people like the pressure. I have a squeezy ball, so it has ridges. You can also use lotion. This doubles as touch and smell. I have my cocoa butter lotion, it's very strong. And I also have my lavender lotion for touch and smell. You take a moment, if you put on the lotion, or you use something like felt or putty or slime or whatever you like to use, and you are intentionally focused on what am I feeling? What is the sensation? when you're not thinking about the million things you have to do, but really being focused on the moment you have now. Then you go to taste. You can have any little treats. I have mints. I also have chocolate covered raisins. Sometimes I switch it out for the hard candy, or Hershey Kisses. So whatever treat you would like, just to savor it and enjoy. Like, how does this taste? What is this sweet? Is it sour? Is this cool? Is it refreshing? Or you can have sometimes I have like tarts, like the sweet tarts, to have a different sensation. So it's really focusing on the senses. I have smell, again I said, smell is my lavender, but I also love essential oils. The scent of the day, of the week, is eucalyptus. I switch it out sometimes with lavender, but eucalyptus, and I open it up, do a little whiff, it's very strong, or you can put it on your pressure points, and you can have that sense of calm. And just smell it, notice what it's doing to your body. Getting a time to calm your nervous system down. And then sight. Sight can be anything from, this is a picture of my family, so they make me smile. I also have nail polish. So if my nails aren't done, sometimes I kind of paint and I look at the color, I'm focused on the activity, and it really brings me a sense of calm. I also have white paper and pens so I can doodle for sight as well. And for sound, sometimes I usually have a bell. I think my son took it. Or I listen to a YouTube playlist. So I have a calm list, and I play it when I'm in the car, or I play it with my headphones on, whenever I want a moment of just peace. So my sound is mostly ocean sounds. And but today I have sound, which I give me this, so the little rattle for that means I put it in the box. So those and having these easy access to different sensory resources really allows you intentional moments of peace. And it doesn't have to be as elaborate as this. It could be literally 5 things or 2 in 1. And you can keep it in your glove compartment, or keep it in your purse, or you can do all in one in your phone. For example, so this is why there's a fine line between digital overload and actually resources, because it can be very intentional. You can have a picture of whatever brings you calm. You can have a playlist on your phone, sounds, on your phone, besides touch or smell. But other than that, your phone really can have a few of the sensory items. So it has to be intentional with a purpose. Any questions so far on coping skills, sensory activity? Maybe. So really realizing that coping and self-care looks different, and knowing that it's okay to experiment. And sometimes different coping skills work for different people, and being able to not be afraid to try something new. So these are some resources that are common helplines that may be useful as well. So this is nationwide, and this is New Jersey specifically. So in the spirit of trying something new, we are going to be doing a mindfulness exercise. It is a sensory exercise, so we are going to be enjoying the sounds of a beach. We're going to be taking some time to regulate our nervous system and surrender to this experience. It's a guided meditation. Before we do that, any questions?
All right. visualization to form in your mind. Picture the sand, blue ocean, clear sky, and green trees. Feel the wind on your skin and the sun shining down on you. You're free to explore this beautiful paradise. Take off your shoes, walk along the sand, and go into the water if you wish. Feel the salt of the air and listen to the birds sing. With each breath, you're feeling more and more relaxed. You notice you're feeling calm, at peace, and full of energy. Take one last look around this beautiful paradise. Take a few breaths, knowing that you can always return. Taking the feeling of calm and peace with you. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes, stretch, and come back to the present. How was that?
Yeah. Yes, this is one of my favorite exercises. I call them mini mental vacations because you can go anywhere with your senses. Thank you so much. I want to thank the Fort Lee School District for bringing me here, presenting this to you. Hopefully you guys found some nuggets of information.